you guys look up anything AI agent wise, there's gonna be a million headlines that pop up that it's like this new phase, this new thing. Can AI improve our lives to the point of automation?
Be going. This is a whole nother hour talk right now if we start going down this rabbit hole.
No, we're not doing that. No, stop. Everybody stop where you're at. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And today we are joined by my main man, Rob Del Grande. How are you doing, my man?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah.
Is that a real last name too? Del Grande?
Believe it or not,
is it just Grande?
It's Del Grande, yeah. Italian heritage, a little bit of Irish in me, but yeah, right out of Bari, Italy.
Means of the big.
Cool. Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Or of the great.
Favorite last name.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the best last names I've ever heard.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Better than mine. Mine just means infant.
I mean, ours are just basic. You have like an Italian heritage. Mine is Shane Riggs. We got Robert Del Grande.
Yeah, actually,
fighting name.
Yeah, my middle name too just makes it just even more insane. It's Amerigo.
Oh boy, Robert Amerigo Del Grande. Oh, let's see. It's got a nice, beautiful ring to it.
And I'm actually the third.
No, that's too much. I'm just kidding.
Wait, Shane, what's your middle name?
I don't have a middle name.
You don't have a middle name?
I do not have a middle name.
That's so weird, man.
Yep. Swear
There's
to God.
some people out there like that, though.
Yep.
What about you, Vin? What is your middle name?
My middle name is Arturo.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
Are we throwing confirmation names in there? Because that one's Louis the 13th.
I mean, it's not, Robert Amerigo Del Grande the third, but God,
wow, we rolling R's now.
That C just makes me. There's all the Robertos.
I love it. Well, let's let the man, the myth, and apparently the legend introduce himself here. Rob, can you tell people what you're building, what you're up to, a little bit of your history? What makes the name so powerful? Who's the man behind the name?
Right. Well, thanks for that powerful intro, guys. I really appreciate that. So my name is Robert. I've been an entrepreneur now for the last 7 years. I started my journey in 2017, originally in e-commerce. I've built a multi-8-figure e-commerce business in that time period. My primary source of income through e-commerce has been merchandise purchases and liquidation, selling through both B2B sales channels through distribution, but also B2C through Amazon. In that process, I've been looking for not only a career change, but a total 180 pivot into a whole different industry. I've been very diligent in this process of scoping out what might be the next new wave of businesses. I've looked at everything from purchasing painting companies to purchasing construction businesses to maybe owning a car dealership, and all these things seemed fairly traditional and non-scalable. And software, it was really what caught my interest. Software is an ever-evolving industry that could really drive innovation and change, which granted what I do now and have been doing, I have contracts where I provide inventory for both electronics to consumers and footwear. Right, I'm helping people, get better products, but it's not like really truly driving innovation. So what I sought after to do was drive innovation in this world. At this point, I really wanted to make a change. So what I've attempted and have successfully proven a proof of concept out at this point is, can we use AI to generate wealth outside of just a note taker or outside of just a tool that you use to maybe organize your calendar or ask ChatGPT on how to better create a diet, right? How can this actually make us money, right? And it's not actually using ChatGPT, which is the very unique selling point of this at all, is we've proprietarily built these things called AI agents, which you could imagine is a human. Let's make an agent a human. And a human goes out and you at times employ humans to do tasks and responsibilities to manage an organization. In an asset management company, there's analysts that you hire to source deals and pick up on market trends and report to their managers of what they think might be a good investment for the company. And these employees, they work 9 to 5, and they're coming out of college at $100,000 a year, and they go out on the weekends and they have relationships, and they're not loyal to the company because they're trying to level up in the corporate ladder, and XYZ factors that make humans actually arguably replaceable through software. And what we've created are these agents which replicate human-driven tasks, roles, and responsibilities that have now been replicated inside of the financial service space. So everything from analysts to managing directors, portfolio managers, to risk managers, to portfolio optimization teams, investment committees, all of these roles have been re-replicated using agent technology that is not done through a ChatGPT wrapper. It's not done through open source code of any thing through Gemini. It's all proprietarily built and housed inside of our internal servers, tested inside of our Google Cloud partnership systems, and is in just really aggressive environmental testing to ensure that we could withstand just high levels of assets under management. We have a proof of concept built out. The system works. It's just a matter of making sure we're comfortable enough to take on, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into what we've now built. So on top of that, there's a whole portfolio to this. There's a platform that you can manage your investment. You can always oversee. There's explainable AI features, which actually explains how we came to investment decisions. Not we, but actually these agents. And these agents work in an operational structure that work in the best interest in finding alpha on behalf of the portfolio. So they're constantly getting rewarded for certain actions, and it's all built through this stochastic control algorithms and dynamic control systems, which are fundamentally built around this theory called reinforcement learning, which over time, as you're rewarded, you actually have better performance, just like similar to training a dog. When you have a dog, it's alive, but doesn't know anything. You teach it how to sit, you give it a biscuit. You teach it to sit and it barks, you penalize it how you see fit, right? And until it understands these commands and roles and responsibilities that when you do a positive action, you get a positive reward. And that's essentially the basic concept of reinforcement learning. And, this comes through millions and millions of demo cycles inside of the cloud for, repetitive training that overall the portfolio now produces positive actions, which produce positive outcomes. And this is a never-ending training cycle. So technically, in theory, every system update we do, the system only improves, and we're setting up models for, retraining systems. So we're not even doing these updates. It's just naturally happening. It's super exciting.
Here we go. I just feel like the Joker already. Like, this is January 16th of 2025. And the fact that we're already talking about this, what Robert's building for a financial advisor for a risk management, this is somebody who has to have years of experience, a very good book of business, something that they believe in, that they probably invest in themselves. Learning through years of failure is already going to be adopted by AI, which is absolutely insane. There's a company out there that I'm not going to name at this time, but their predictions are going to be that there's going to be 8.6 million robots by the year 2040. And then by the year 2050, 122 million just in the United States of robots taking over the blue collar and white collar industries. The fact that this is already getting to advancement where we're talking about investment and wealth and risk management in 2025 on January 16th is absolutely insane. I did want to talk more about the rewarding and reinforced knowledge here. Do you give it like a virtual gift basket through Amazon, or is it more of just like, you did a great job, I'm proud of you? Like, what type of rewards can we actually give AI that's like, oh, thank you, I'm going to do better on this time? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, so it's actually like more simple than complex, and it's on a simple point system where it's like either rewarded 1 point for a good behavior, or it's like penalized a point on a bad behavior, right? So it's constantly trying to have more points in its basket. That's how it's programmed, is that the more points it has, the better it's doing. But this is not broken up on just like the overall performance, right? This is done on and built within thousands of different control problems on a hyper focus, right? So like if the analyst is picking up on like maybe like a market indicator that the risk portfolio manager likes, like, okay, well, the risk managers, like, they enjoy and they like having these types of, pieces of material given to them, right? But if it gives in something about like Elmo, like what you know what I mean? Like, this is not the right piece of information to drive investments, right? And it's penalized, right? Which literally happens is finding and refining data at mass quantities. You have to be able to, figure out what works and what doesn't. And not only you have to figure out, but the system literally needs to figure out. And this is only happens over millions of tests and trials. If you it's not a genetic algorithm, our system, but I'm going to use the example of what a genetic algorithm is. And a genetic algorithm is what's used a lot of times as a core model in creating a robot to actually walk, balance, and have human movements. And there's these videos online which you could look up, and it actually explains what a genetic algorithm does, and it in theory learns balance over millions of test trials. So it will show a robot laying down, and it'll run a bunch of computer simulations, and it will continually stand up, and it'll fall, and it will fall, and then it will eventually stand up, and then it will fall, and then it will take a step, and then it will fall, and then it will take another step, and it will fall, and then it will learn how to get up. And over time, through millions of tests, these genetic algorithms evolve and allow a robot to walk. We are not using genetic algorithms. We have versions of some sort of algorithm similar, but genetic algorithms is not what this is built around. This is built strictly around reinforcement learning agents that optimize and control just high levels of math.
It's just, I'm just still flabbergasted at the level of sophistication that essentially you're building, that's already come to fruition, that's already essentially been tested out and theorized. My next question is more on the diversement of what they actually can do. Is this more like the traditional stocks? Is this combined with life insurance policies and Roths and SEPs and 401s and crypto? It's risk management, but how diverse can this actually get? Does it give tax advice? Is it just portfolio management? I know it's really coming together here in the next couple of months, but at this point in time, what is it at right now?
So all these concepts that you mentioned are where we want to head to, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be able to service multiple financial instruments and have all these different bells and whistles that their customers can leverage? But for what's most important for us right now is just staying focused on getting to our V1 system. And that's having a public facing product which can drive revenue to the company, which is strictly using and only focused around currency trading. So this isn't crypto. This isn't, any of that stuff that you might or be familiar with. What we're doing essentially is doing spot FX trading really the four major currency pairs. So what happens if the fluctuation in exchange rates between Euro, USD swings, right? We're actually trading the swings in these, global FX currencies on the FX markets. The reason why we started there was because it has extreme liquidity compared to other markets. I mean, if we need to sell a position, there's no risk in us not having cash on that sell side to get paid out when that takes place. The markets are extremely stable compared to stocks. I mean, I was just in a few quantum computing stocks, and Jensen Huang of NVIDIA just came out, and Mark Zuckerberg came out quantum is 30 years away, and literally these stocks plummeted 40%. It's you're just not gonna have that same effect when you're talking about the euro or the dollar. And the whole purpose of this V1 system is to allow for massive amounts of news data to come in to our system, for our system to be able to ingest. It's able for us to pick up on market indicators. It's for us to pick up on long-term history of trading data, right? These currencies have been around for a very long time, not forever, because money evolves, currency evolves, but a long enough time where we could have a very solid training window to understand how the markets work. And then, just additionally, FX is traditionally known for leverage trading, where people will go out and have a 1 to 100 or 1 to 50 portfolio, and they'll go out and they'll open offshore brokerages through these people. And it's just known for this super sketchy industry. And we're just trying to take that entirely away. Everything's done on US regulated markets, through US prime brokers, and it's done through separate managed accounts. So we're not asking customers to wire us the money. It's in their control of say their interactive brokerage account, or in future versions they can keep it in their Fidelity or Charles Schwab, right, or even in their JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley, whoever they decide to bank with. Their APIs will just be able to tap right in. Right now our V1 system's only on interactive brokers, and what we'd like to expand to in future years. I mean, honestly, we're talking like 12 months from now, but like seriously start expanding into like additional asset classes once our V1 system's like revenue producing and returning a profit, because it has the ability to do that. And like specifically, just for more detail, is it's this concept of transfer learning that these agents have. So like an agent is designed to do like a specific role, which I explained in detail. But what can actually happen is the data from one agent can be transferred to another agent that's just like spun up. And what we're doing is we're automating our pipelines so that we could like just deploy agents in like mass, but also have this concept of transfer learning. So just because this agent's brand new, like this agent just like transfers all of its information to him, or and now it's just as smart as the one that's been around for 6 months. And now we just have like infinite scalability and like agent deployment. So like if we want to move into like different asset classes, it's just kind of transferring our architecture into all these different investment verticals. But again, this is like a lot harder than just this conversation, but in theory, this is the concept.
Yeah, I've already told Rob this, but I'm going to be one of his first investors, because this man that you're all listening to, and if you're watching on video, staring at, he never loses. You should always bet on Rob. If there's anything you've taken from this podcast, it's bet on this man, and I intend to.
Can I backtrack a little bit here?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you were in e-com for 7 years, and I actually know people that are getting back into e-com strictly because of the diversification with, TikTok. Well, we'll see if TikTok even lasts. Essentially promoting products to influencers that are actually selling those in there. Why were you looking to get out when you made such a profitable thing? Was it something that you just wanted to, I'm ready to move on and go on to the next step? Were you able to successfully get out of that company? Are you still running their e-com shop? Is this fully taking over the day-to-day? Your mindset on e-com and where it's currently at right now and why you decided to transition.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a 3-part answer. I'm going to start first off, I got out because I've always just wanted larger opportunities in front of me. I don't necessarily see myself flipping Birkenstocks when I'm like 40. I have intentions to set myself up to have a large business where I can comfortably position myself in life where I'm not necessarily worried, not only for myself, but also my employees around me. I would prefer to be working with people that I could compensate more for their roles, people that are, in positions to be in better financial situations around me. And, being an entrepreneur for a while, it's not that it's lonely, but you want people around you to be winning. And I just found a really good group of people to do this project with, very, very smart individuals that I connected with, but not only saw a long-term vision with. And it's just really just kind of fun with a group of guys that you could just start winning with. And, you see this long-term vision together. Second to that, e-commerce in its current state right now is incredible. It's booming if you know what you're doing. Granted, I know what I'm doing in e-commerce. This is not a question or a debate of like, do I know how to do e-commerce? It's more of there's just more opportunities out there that like I have more interest in. Sometimes in life, you don't always have to do what you've always done, right? Whether that's a relationship or whether that is the same car you drive or the same job you work at, change drives evolution and change drives uniqueness in your own life. And not that like I can't go back to e-commerce at some later point. I just like see like a more fun like career for me, like in like developing like cool innovative things. And like, just like your analogy at CIS, or not even your analogy, but your story that people are coming out with like these robots and stuff. Like I was like sitting in, this is insane, I'm even saying this, but like I was sitting in the kitchen with my mom the other morning, just like hanging out with my mom and father, and like I'm like just like thinking. I was like, "What are you thinking about?" And I was like, "Mom, I think I know how to build a robot to like build a house." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Well, it's not really that hard to actually do it. Like I actually think I could put together the team to like have a robot to build homes, and like we could maybe solve the housing crisis in the United States. Like automate like these robots just start building houses for us. Like think about it. They work 24/7 around the clock. They just go into their charging battery. You don't pay them. they just like one-time fee, whatever. It's just like a tangent right there. But again, there's like all these innovative things that can get done. And then also third to that answer is I grew up in a very like interesting family dynamic. My parents are still married. They love each other. I have two awesome brothers that are also crushing it. I'm the oldest, but like when I was, at my kitchen table, like I vividly remember we'd have family dinners every morning. Every night. And my dad was and is the CFO of a hedge fund. Like his whole career, he's just been a CFO of a hedge fund. Granted, I'm self-made. We never had like that like time and place where I was like, hey, I need like $1 million loan right now. It was never that Trump scenario. Although when I was sitting at the kitchen table, it was my dad worrying about like a $400 million investment coming in. My mom, like, who was a school teacher, like worrying about like what Sally like did like at lunchtime, right? Like just like totally two different personalities and like in like environments to grow up within. And like I've always like wanted to go into financial services just like primarily because of like this like growing up around it, trading, investments, management, like investors. And it's always really sparked my interest. And like coming to market with an innovative software to like actually enter that field, I was like, all right, this is probably how I should do that. And yeah, that's the 3-part answer.
I really think that when people have some sort of exposure in their life, even if you don't initially get into it, it's something that ultimately winds up being a part of the hand you're dealt. Very similar to you. I got into therapy because my dad was a therapist and I admired my dad, and I had the family dinners, and I remember really just sitting here thinking like, I think my dad's the coolest guy I know. I want to be a lot like him. And, it's funny because we never got to work together either, me and my dad. But I think just being exposed to it is so important. And one of the curiosities that I have is having this lesson that even though you were exposed to it, you didn't fully get into it with him. You knew the power it had in the proximity of your family. As you get older, as you build this life for yourself, how do you envision being this entrepreneur that also builds a family, if you want a family? And what would that wind up looking like? Like, do you have intentions of, I want my kid involved with my stuff? Like, do you want to live the same way? Like, let your kid just figure it out and you do your thing? Like, what? I'm curious how that view would be for you.
Yeah, I mean, like for myself, family is obviously the end goal here, right? I mean, there's nothing like more heartfelt than like loving somebody or like thinking about the concept of like settling down and like having a bunch of kids running around at Christmas or whatever, it's just really nice, or like it's just a really nice thought. But like right now it's kind of like not necessarily like the direct focus in my life of like that next chapter. And I kind of see I have a real opportunity in front of me to capture, to put myself in a position to like really enjoy that next phase of my life. I guess I wouldn't necessarily want to be in business with my kid directly, kind of like my dad, where he more or less just advised me and let me just fall and get back up and just fall and get back up. But like always knew that like if something really hit the fan, he's probably going to be there for me. But like it's never gotten to that point where, because like at the start, I mean, clearly I could have been like, hey, this is my idea, but it was never like that. It was always like, just go figure it out and let me know what you find. And this is how I raised you. And that's the intention I do with my son or daughter is like, life's tough, so figure it out. You're going to have to go through things you don't necessarily like doing, but not everything can be handled to you, or you're not going to be really anything. And I find that like a lot of the kids that I was raised around, fortunately it was an affluent area, but like these kids are really not doing anything impressive or like life-changing or even working in some instances, primarily because of their like environment that they're raised around. Kind of this everyone's rewarded and get a medal and get handed like instant gratification for not really doing anything.
Yeah, that's a really very core component of who you are as a person. From what I know about you, is that the reason you always figure it out is because that's what you've been raised to do. There's a lot of, and we talk a lot about mindset on this podcast too. So I'm glad that we're talking about this for the listeners, especially, is that if you don't have this mindset of I have to figure it out, and you're used to people solving your problems for you, you lose your creativity. You lose your ability to think outside the box. That's why you could sit at the kitchen table and think about how a robot can solve the housing crisis, because you just think outside the box because you weren't given anything. You were the epitome of somebody who's self-made with potential access if things really go bad. However, the ideologies that even we want to see just how bad things get before you even get that access, and it's figure it out. And that's arguably probably what's been one of the biggest things that's always helped you as an entrepreneur. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's not that I didn't have anything handed to me. I mean, we grew up in an amazing life, vacations and, awesome holidays. And, it's beautiful still even today. Right. But like, just like you said, like if it's there, I'm sure it's there. I just never had to ask the question.
It's powerful.
I think the only thing that's going to be the difference is creativity, comparing us to the actual robots. Well, there's amongst other things too with emotions and things like that. But anyways, that's not what I want to get into.
Right.
So if this isn't describe an entrepreneur going from a cushy, comfortable e-com job that like, love, it's easy to make money, and you decided to follow your passion into finance and open up a software company that is focused around that. I don't know what else describes entrepreneurship. And that pretty much should just take over the definition aspect. So now that you're in the passion, now that you're doing what you love to do and you're involved with guys that you love doing this with, I know your goal immediately is to get out this version 1. What do the next 6 months look like? Because I don't know if we discussed this on this podcast or as previous, but June is the goal, right? June is launch date, correct?
Yeah, that's the intention, is to be in June. I mean, between now and then, we're currently closing out a fundraising round just to kind of stabilize the operation.
How can people find out more about that fundraising round? I'm just generally curious.
Yeah, they could just email me directly at Robert@Argand Tech, ARGAND Tech TECH.com, and I'm happy to set up a call. But I mean, right now we're in conversation with a few options. We have some deals on the table which look fairly promising, and goal 1 is getting this V1 system live. But in order to get to goal 1, there's a bunch of subtasks that have to be completed, like landing this fundraising round and ensuring that we have maintained system stability. We're able to deploy a lot more just like infrastructure to our company to stand trade allocation on a larger scale, internal accounting systems to make sure that like all of our investors are getting proper reporting. We have some compliance due diligence we're going to have to go through. Some sort of testings potentially on my end and my partner's end we have to go through in regards to compliance. But it's just kind of cleaning up. I mean, the main haul of code for the V1 is completed. It's more just like maintenance and parameter tuning to make sure that we're like performing on how we want to be performing when we go to market.
Real quick, Vin, before you get into this, this is 20 months into the making, correct?
20 months, 1.3 million, personal bootstrap. It's a grind, bro. It's a grind.
Absolutely, especially investing into your own money into this vision. I'm curious, on day 1, because we all know how evolvement happens and how changes need to be made. Was this always the vision since you immediately started and grabbed the partners that were you with, or was it something else and that it evolved into something like this?
So the initial concept, actually, it's good you bring this up. No, it was not. I didn't know what to expect getting into this business, right? I didn't know anything about agents. I didn't know anything about really much other than I had money set aside that I could allocate towards new investment opportunity. And part of that was making sure I sourced the correct team and talent, because I've done a few other ventures outside of e-commerce and it was just kind of wrong partner selection at the time. And I really made an effort to find solid technical partners, people that are either from Ivy Leagues or really just strong corporate backgrounds, whether that's like Lockheed Martin or Citadel, to come in and make sure that we're set up just proper. But not only that, it was also more of just like a personality fit. Do they understand me? Do they see my vision? Do they understand how I work? Do they understand how I talk? Like, I'm not a Harvard graduate over here, right? I'm not some sophisticated, Ivy League guy from Goldman Sachs that sits there and talks finance numbers all day. I'm very much of a visionary creator. And I say a lot of shit that when I'm talking to my employees and partners, this is like, not as professional as this call right now, where I'm just kind of spitballing and I'm like, what about this? What about that? And what about this? And they probably want to throw me down a flight of stairs because I probably repeat myself 15 times every conversation, but I'm just trying to drill this understanding into my head of what we have. And again, at month 1, it was originally thought it was going to take 6 months. And then like my main partner, Henry, came to me. He is my like the largest partner that I have. He's really the brain. He's the scientific officer behind the whole AI architecture. He came to me and was like, hey, like, are you trying to build like a dinghy, or do you want me to like build you like a yacht? And I was like, fuck it, let's build that yacht. You know what I mean? Like, you know, in theory, we probably should have started with the dinghy to start getting revenue in quicker, and then had a base model that we built off of to get to the yacht. But, you know, this is part of the startup of ever evolving change and learning. And I think if we started with the dinghy, we probably would have ran into problems which would have prevented us to get to the yacht. So there's 2 ways to look at every story. And it originally started because I was involved in just like a basic algorithm that I got scammed on. And like, I was like, this is the coolest thing. I want to have something like this. This is like, just, if I could just have this is awesome. Like, I'm producing so much return, but like, imagine the guy who owns this thing. And that was like the original like driving thing that wanted me. Like, I lost 25,000 on the investment, and I was like, I wasn't even upset that I lost the 25,000. I was just more upset that like such a cool business had to stop. I was like, fuck, like, that's so sick. Like, so that's what like really kind of drove me to start this whole company. And now it's evolved into like this AI evolution. My partner Henry was like, hey, we're gonna do these agents. I've been studying these things for like like 5-6 years now. Like, I know how to build these things out. I was like, fuck it, let's do it. And here we are.
I love it.
But this is like the whole like next wave of AI is this agentic technology. It's coming. You guys look up anything AI agent wise, there's meet a million headlines that pop up that it's like this new phase, this new thing. Can AI improve our lives to the point of automation?
I think it will.
It's like perfect.
Well, here's another.
Keep me going. This is a whole nother hour talk right now. If we start going down this rabbit hole,
No, we're not doing that. No, stop. Everybody, stop where you're at. We have a few minutes left. So, with that being said, I got like 3 more things for you, Rob. One of them being, what was one of the most difficult problems you encountered when building this thus far, and what was the creative way that you got out of it?
Man, time. You know, when you're just dumping like 50 to 60,000 a month into just like the ether without like having like any sort of result other than just like tens of thousands of lines of code, but like not knowing like what the hell it means. Like, and you're just like, all right, here's another check. There's another check. There's another check. And just like praying and hoping that you get to the point where we could have a conversation like today. That is like definitely the most challenging mental thing to get through, is like just getting to this point was extremely difficult in and of itself. And just really what just kept pushing me through was just like these small instances of like small success. And it's like, oh, an agent can now read news. It's like, oh yeah, that's enough to just justify spending another 50,000 this month. Right. It's like, right. And that's kind of been like this, I guess this like instant small gratification of like, I feel we're just getting every step closer has really been driving this whole thing.
I think that's a true testament of your team building skills, though.
Yeah.
So it's definitely important. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs forget. So for all of you listeners, this is a big reminder. You need to see and recognize small checkpoints that can help you build motivation, because entrepreneurship is a lot of failure. It's a lot of risk. It's a lot of problems you encounter. And without having those little recalibrating moments of, oh yeah, like this tiny thing that we just achieved makes all of that crap before it worth it. And if you don't really build that into how you're viewing your business and the process of it, it could be really, really difficult to stick with. So I'm glad you brought that up. Rob, 2 more things for you. So one of the questions that we ask every guest, and this is something I'm very interested to hear from you as well, is our podcast is the 1%. We believe that a 1% life is not just about being a billionaire, though as this AI algorithm takes off, I think we'll be there. But until we get to that part, the premise is that a 1% life is how you're trying to achieve some amazing version of either yourself or something that you're doing in this world, some way you're dedicating yourself to being one of the best in whatever it is you're doing. With that being said, what is your version of a 1% life?
Honestly, I think just like having like a roadmap of where you actually want to head to, and just knowing that every day you're working just one step closer towards your goal, whether that's physical, emotional, financial. 1% of anything in any direction every day will get you there in 100 days, right? So if you look at it in that regards, 1% might not be a lot. It might be like just sending a few emails a day to like a cold network of people that you don't know who's going to respond, right? But if you do that every day for 10 days, you're at technically 10% of where you want to head to. And it's just like this overall driving consistency of just doing a little bit every day and not killing yourself like every day. Not saying don't work hard and not like work like 12-hour and 18-hour days. Like you need that in order to have success. Like that's a given. But understanding that like instant gratification just does not happen, and 1% chipping away will, in theory, get you to 100% in 100 days. So
I want to ask one question because I already know the last question. It's a good one too. It's all about you. But what's the best advice that you were ever given that you still kind of hold to, to fruition, to close to the chest here?
I like that.
Honestly, the best advice, this is random. Honestly, there's a few good advice moments. I'm gonna have two. One, I was in high school and I was working this internship for an individual who he owned at the time about 15 Dunkin' Donut franchises. And like, I was like, this guy's such a beast. Like this is so sick. Or I was kind of like his apprentice. And like, he was like, Rob, like you need multiple income streams in order to become wealthy. And like, that was like, that I was like 17 and I was like, okay, like multiple income streams, like check, you know what I mean? Like that's checked off, right? Understood that. And that's been true still to this day, having whether it's multiple investments or just like different areas or like multiple e-commerce businesses that drive income. It's always been relevant in my life. But also, the second advice that I've had was trying to travel as frequently as possible, not only for leisure, which never happens leisure. It's always like some business purpose driving why I move, but like changing your environment in general, at least every 90 days, 3 months, will mandatorily spark things in your brain which force you to think differently, right? If you travel to Ohio, you've never been to Ohio, like you have to analyze your scenario and you have to be somewhere different. It forces your brain to figure out different things that you're not used to, a new environment entirely. And like the more I've been within software and AI, when you're training AI, it's all about environmental training and putting it in different environments. And like, it's unbelievable the differences and the similarities that comes into training AI and like how humans live. And like, the more that I've like thought and kind of reflected on this thought of like, man, I've really traveled like so much. Right. It's like I'm constantly working where I'm traveling. I'm in different environments. Like, and I'm like, one day I might be at like literally like South America, and then maybe I'll be in Florida, and then maybe I'll be in Cape Town. Right. And it's all these different cultural experiences and environments that you're in really kind of shape you to be able to think differently and force your brain to come up with creative solutions more quickly in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Getting out of your comfort zone and getting into somewhere where you can just think open-minded is definitely beneficial. And the IRS, I'm glad you said leisurely. If you're ever listening, all of my trips are always business. Even Hawaii, Bahamas, South America, Costa Rica, all business trips. So
yes,
I want to put that on record.
And all the meals consumed there are business meals. Everybody, yeah, it's all business.
Now that it's on record, I feel comfortable about it.
Of course. So, Rob, final thing, and by the way, stick around for a second after the show. But please tell people, how can they get involved in anything you're doing? How can they find you? You threw out your email, but is there any other better way that people could or should be reaching out to you? How could they get connected?
Yeah, so definitely just to start off, thank you for having me on today. This was really great. Questions were awesome, and I love just chatting about this stuff because it's a lot of fun. Second, we are going to be setting up a program on a very lightweight referral program. Like, this has not been talked about much in depth, but we want to have it where people can actually earn through us on referrals ongoing. That's kind of a to be determined situation. But if you have any financial advisors or wealth managers that maybe manage your money, any sort of referrals like that, you could definitely earn very large compensation packages for introductions. We're looking to target small to mid cap investment funds, registered investment advisors, high net worth individuals. Any sort of introductions would earn to some sort of commission. But for just general outreach, you can email me, again, robert@argontech.com. You could always shoot me a DM on Instagram, robert.grande_. You could, which I'm really never on much, but you could also message me through LinkedIn, which I'm active on, Robert Del Grande. There's a lot of ways. Just search me up, and I'm sure you could find some way to get in contact.
Google him, or better yet, knowing what I know about the referral bonuses, don't message Rob. Message me directly. I'll connect you with Rob. I am pulling his call to action. Do not message him at all. Only me.
Now I have to go through to get to Rob.
Yeah, that's right. Nobody message Rob. You message us. No, but seriously, guys, this is going to be an exciting program. I myself am looking extremely this is, by the way, not financial advice, but I am looking extremely forward to investing with Rob and his company myself. And again, Rob, thank you so much for being here today. So guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend, let them know what you got going on. Go get those fat referral bonuses. And as always, we are the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And that was Rob. See you later, everybody.
Bye, guys.